I'm going to introduce Chuck Salem, who is the CEO and co-owner of Unique Venues. And Chuck is going to introduce our panelists for today and move us forward with, oh, do you want me to do a quick intro of the panelists? Okay, so I will do that really quickly here. Hang on just one second. Make sure I get titles correctly here. I can probably do that quickly. So we have two experts with us today, and we're really grateful for them joining and sharing their time and expertise with us. First is Murray Hall. Murray is the executive chef at the BMO Institute for Learning in Toronto. And the second panelist with us today is Morgan Bedore. She's the Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Creative Development at Elior North America. And I'm not exactly sure where Morgan's coming from. So Morgan, where are you at today?
I'm in our commissary in Philadelphia.
All right, excellent. So in the East Coast, and as you can see, both Murray and Morgan are food service professionals. They are clearly in a kitchen food service setting. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck and let him take it away.
Thanks, Joel. It's so nice to be with everyone today. We have another large crowd with us, and this topic is one that I don't think there's been any point in time during this pandemic and this current crisis where this topic hasn't been at the forefront of many people's minds. And so we're really glad to be bringing you two experts today who can answer the questions for us. We have developed this program in a way that not only addresses our current questions and needs and ways to think today about food and beverage, but also frames it for how we can think about food and beverage as we move forward through the crisis and post-pandemic. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and I'm going to toss this question out because we have two panelists today. I just feel free to both answer. I'll call out one and just take turns and then say, okay, I might say, Murray, can you give us your thoughts? And then have Morgan do the same. So COVID-19 disrupted all aspects of the meeting and events industry. Talk a little bit about what some of the biggest disruptions have been for food and beverage service and how you're working to overcome them. So let's go ahead and start with Murray.
Sure. Thank you very much, Chuck. So some of the big things that we've looked at doing right away was before all this hit, we were actually on a very big mission to be plastic free, green free, and really did a lot of stuff to get away from using that single-use disposable cutlery, disposable cups. And we really were transitioning the whole building out of that zone and really looking at what we can do for that green model. So the big change we had to do was more or less kind of bring that back in now. So now I'm looking at paper cups that are individually wrapped. I'm looking at plastic cups that are individually wrapped. We're looking at different things that are not going to plastic cutlery, but we're more looking at bamboo cornstarch mixes, compostable cutlery. We're looking at wood cutlery as well too. But I just find there's a lot of packaging, a lot of wrapping, a lot of individual stuff, a lot of labeling. So from my side, everything needs to have a label on it because one big sign just doesn't cut it anymore. Everybody wants to know exactly what's in that dish. And then you still have to work with the special meals, the special diets that are working as well. So if someone comes and says they're vegan or gluten-free, they want to make sure that that stuff is individually labeled, individually packaged, and put out in a nice, presentable box that is someone's individual box. So where our communal coffee break stations we had in the building worked once, now they're not really working that much at all anymore. We're looking at individually packaging everything, removing all the shared use utensils, all that kind of stuff, and more or less giving someone just a box of here's a nice assortment of items. It's yours, it's sealed, and off you go.
Great. Thank you, Murray. Morgan, let's make sure you're unmuted there.
Yep.
There you go. Tell us your perspective on this question.
Yeah, I mean, our business kind of runs the gamut as it relates to food service and hospitality. So we do professional dining in, law firms and hedge funds. We do cultural institutions where we operate cafes and full service restaurants, and we do special events. And so obviously every single one of those verticals were hugely impacted by the pandemic, and many of our businesses physically closed. And are just starting the rebound and the recovery of reopening. And as they reopen, they're doing so with, clearly reduced capacities, social distancing, lots of new restrictions and guidelines. And ultimately, since we're across, North America, those guidelines are governed by city and state. And so everywhere we do business is a little bit different at this point. To kind of go with what Murray was saying, I mean, we felt that stress of the environment at the very beginning of this too. Ultimately, we were, looking to reduce our waste as much as possible before the pandemic, and had many really awesome recycling and compostable programs in place, had gone to reusable items in a lot of our full service restaurants and cafes, and obviously had to pivot all of that based on this, and are now again kind of looking at the disposable single-use items. But we're doing so with the lens of trying to be as environmentally conscious and friendly as possible, which is hard right now, but really important. So doing boxed water instead of bottled water, or aluminum cans instead of plastic, doing bamboo and palm leaf instead of plastic, doing things that are truly compostable and biodegradable and not just recyclable. And making sure that there's really clear signage wherever we're doing business right now, so that people know how to dispose of their waste in the most thoughtful way possible. I think on the other side of things, it's pivoting. Obviously, so many of us are in the same boat with folks being out of work because of this pandemic in our industry. And so our company really looked at this as an opportunity to pivot the standard business that we do in special events and think about how we could be helpful now. And so, across dining and events, which is kind of the vertical within Eleor North America that really plays in the catering space, we started doing meal production for the food insecure. We partnered with a couple of city and state programs in New York and in Miami. And as of this point, we've done 3.5 million meals delivered to folks in need, bringing over 200 people back to work. And so we're looking for ways to try to keep that integration happening as we start to rebound our business and reopen our business. What other meal programs and production capabilities could we leverage for our commissaries to keep people going?
Wow, that's all very intriguing from both of you. I really, I find it interesting, the service component, how you have transitioned to providing a service product in Miami and New York and other places, employing people and being of service, yet being able to maintain business. So that's, I commend you on that. That's excellent. And I know, I'm not sure how many of the venues who are here today have thought about engaging as a community resource for providing dining services to those in need. And as a way to keep the staff going, keep the staff employed, keep the operation going and alive and breathing. So thank you for that. That's really interesting. All right. Next question is, what types of live events have you hosted or held in the past couple of months, now that we're into this hybrid model? And did the execution of the event go as planned? What are some of the things you learned by this new way of doing special events? So let's go ahead. This time we're going to start, we'll go to Morgan this time, and then we'll go to Murray second. So Morgan?
Sure. So I guess probably on the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic region, and in Miami, we were able to start kind of slowly bringing back some of the live event business towards the end of August, middle to end of August. And really everything's about capacity and guidelines right now. How many people can we have in a space? At the onset of being able to do live events again, it was outdoor only. And so very much weather dependent, tenting capacities, people with the budgets to put tents where tents weren't before, and really kind of working to leverage the opportunities where we had a great outdoor space. And then more recently, as a lot of these cities and states have allowed for smaller indoor capacity, we've been seeing a ton of the micro events that you're seeing all over social media right now, micro weddings, micro social events, big anniversaries, big birthday parties. We've not seen the resurgence of corporate business at all yet. And I think that that's probably pretty standard across the US, but definitely on the social side, people are still getting married. They're still having bar and bat mitzvahs. They're just doing so with like 50 people or less. So Yeah, I mean, it's been really cool to kind of get back into that detail work amongst our teams. We're seeing that happen in the cultural institutions, but we're also seeing a big emphasis in doing off-premise events in private residences. People feeling more comfortable entertaining at home where they have control over the environment than anything else. And so we've really tried to put together kind of a special events playbook, if you will, for this post-COVID environment that really lays out what we're doing as a company to keep both our employees and our guests safe. How we're really making sure that people are healthy before they come to the event. In many cases, offering COVID-tested employees to service these events, so that we're doing our part to keep the cases down.
That's excellent. Was there anything that there's probably a number of things that you didn't expect, because this is a new territory for everybody to kind of be entering into. Is there any one thing that really sticks out in your mind that you can think, I wish I would have thought of this before we started doing it?
Not necessarily one thing. I think it's been such an evolution and such a learning curve for all of us. I think, as we really got together as a project group pre-events coming back and thought about like all the details that go into planning and executing an event, and what we felt like we were going to have to layer in from a safety and sanitation standpoint to make sure that these events not only were safe, but felt and appeared safe from a perception standpoint. We thought about, okay, well, pre-poured water, is that a thing now? Can you do that anymore? There is not really a city and state guideline about that, but how are we going to make it feel safe for you to sit at a table and drink from a water glass that was already filled before you got there? And so we put a lot of those details into place, printing really cool letterpress coasters that serve as kind of the safety cap on those waters, so that we're getting, the visibility and the branding, but we're also sending the message that nobody else has touched that glass. And there's lots of great details like that we brainstormed and kind of put into play across the market.
Great, thank you, Morgan. Yeah. All right, let's go over to you. Same question. What types of live events have you held at your venue in the past couple months? And did things go as you planned? Were there any big lessons that you learned through, as Morgan says, it's been an evolution. So what were some of those things that you've learned through this process?
Yeah, thank you. We have done mainly virtual hybrid events at the building. So, I mean, Morgan brought up some fantastic points, and I agree with a lot of the stuff that she's putting together as well. But the hybrid event thing has really come up to being one of the big things that we've looked at. Even myself, I've wound up doing hybrid cooking and hybrid cooking demonstrations for clients coming in as well too. We're still playing actually with something that's a little fun, of maybe like a hybrid culinary team building event. So we're still kind of playing with things like that. But I'd say really those meetings where we've got a couple hundred attendees, like how we have on this call today, or this event, and then in the room we'll have the AV guys with 10 or 12 computers in front of them, and they're the ones hosting all the event and making sure everything happens. But that is where I think we're seeing a lot more of the future coming from, especially from our own corporate business, from BMO, as we're seeing that hybrid event really take place. Some of the stuff that we looked at when it came to things we should have thought about, I find that signage was key. There was a few points where we still had to have signage, and it was more or less reminding about social distancing. Masks were fine for us, no problems there. But I found it was just having someone, a staff member, going around that would be having gloves on, having mask on, and just reminding people, you can't line up side to side to go into the washroom. With the break station is over here. Would you please mind just being a little bit more apart from people? So I found the floor stickers worked really good. The additional signage worked good. But then also just having that person just walking around, and not being the police kind of, but just a friendly person to walk around, check on the customers, check on how they're doing, have that personal connection. And maybe it's just a light conversation that's like, hey, the sign is here for you're 6 feet apart for where you're going for your beverage. So that was probably the one kind of learning lesson that we looked at doing probably overall was, okay, the sign was good, but having that person just to have that small, brief connection with that individual was monumental.
Great. Thank you very much. There were a lot of things that was said between both of you that I found just really intriguing. A couple of things that really stick out is that there's an opportunity to market through this. So you have these micro events, and one of the things I really liked that Morgan said was that I love the idea of the cup covers and using that as a way to get your brand in front of your guests at this. I really, so that reminds me that while we're all in triage, just trying to make things feel okay and safe, that doesn't mean we have to sacrifice the fact that we still have a brand that we want to get out there, because while there are micro events are growing. No pun intended. And what I heard from you, Murray, that I loved is that you're creating experiences as a new way of doing it, cooking classes and things like that, where you're inviting people in, not because they've contacted you to host an event, but you're taking your culinary team and you're developing experiences that people can come in and enjoy, and could lead to potential business as well, while keeping people going. So there's, I thank you both for your responses to those questions. Joel, do we have any questions from our attendees at this point?
We do. Actually, there's a couple of great follow-ups to the discussion so far. So one would be a quick follow-up related to, for Morgan, for people going into homes. How are you testing employees, or what kind of things are you doing to ensure that they are not going to be responsible as a spreading event by coming into someone's home? So what are you doing, and who's managing that process?
Sure. A couple of different things, honestly. We do have our employees able to be rapid tested for events. And we're lucky that on the East Coast, there are ample rapid testing facilities right now. And so you can get back results, assuming that you've made the appointment and did the legwork to get there. You can get back results within 24 or 48 hours. And that has been really helpful in converting some business for some of these private, more high-end events in homes, where people just really want that knowledge that not only do you feel okay, but you are okay. And so that's definitely one layer. But another layer, just in terms of the commissary work and everything that we're doing, is we temp check everybody when they arrive every morning. We make sure that there are sanitation stations everywhere throughout the space. So when you come in the morning, you're cleaning your hands, you're putting on your PPE. When you leave, when you go to the restroom, when you leave at the end of the day, when you leave for a lunch break to come back, those happen, like clockwork, again and again and again. We also have people fill out a health and safety, almost like a worksheet every day, where it asks a handful of really simple questions about how you're feeling, so that you as the employer are taking responsibility for saying, yes, I'm here, I feel good, I am safe, and I have no symptoms.
Great. And then the second question is really for both of you. In the initial question, both of you talked about doing kind of single-use items for a lot of events. And the question from Kelly was, with sanitizing measures already in food service, and some of the things that, Morgan, you just emphasized are being done to a greater degree than maybe even before, is single-use item really necessary, at least in small groups? So what are your thoughts about kind of that trade-off between the single use for the health and sanitary, but also the fact that you're going to these extremes to keep everything sanitized in the first place? Any thoughts, Murray?
For the single-use items, it's working with the participants, the guests, different comfort levels. So I find that the single-use items are something that we're in now. We're going to have to keep with it for a little while, and then as people get more comfortable or they're familiar with the space, we can probably go back to something that would be a regular fork and a knife and a spoon and a roll-up. But for right now, the individually wrapped knife, the individually wrapped spoon, far be it compostable, cornstarch, wood, bamboo, palm leaf, whatever it is. It's unfortunately something that I think people are more gravitating to, especially on our end right now, and they're looking for that extra layer of comfort more than anything else. I mean, same with what Morgan was referring to. We have our staff come in, we do temperature checks every day. We sign a form that says that we're healthy today, that there's no runny noses, there's no coughs or whatever. So we're taking a lot of extra steps with our PPEs as well, and really putting that through down to the associate level. And when the guests come into the building, there's that comfort level of seeing that extra clean, that extra sanitizing that's going on far above and beyond.
I have a question that wasn't on my list originally, but just your comments now just made me think. So let's imagine for a moment that it's a few months down the road and there's a breakthrough, there's a vaccine, people are starting to get vaccinated, and you're starting to prepare for what might be some sense of normalcy again. Do you feel that not just in the food and beverage industry, but in any aspect of the events industry, that some of the precautions that you're currently taking in the back of the house would or should continue once we get through this? Or do we go back to...
Yeah, it's a great question, Chuck. I mean, I'm not really too sure how it would actually pan out. I mean, I would like not to cook with a face mask on all the time. So certain things, the kitchen's hot and you get that face mask on you, and if you wear glasses, there's some issues there, right? So
Yeah.
I would like not to do it for forever, but I do see this as being something that it will be a slow wind down. I see a long future with the extra sanitation, the extra gloves, disposable aprons, face masks, different sort of tiebacks, hats, face shields, all that kind of stuff. We're going to be in that for a little while still. More or less vaccine or not, I think we're still going to be in that for a bit. Not that I'm thrilled about it, but that's the reality, and that's what we're going to have to work with. But I think, down the road, I think we can probably start pulling back. I just hope the face mask would go, just leaning over the stove would be good.
Yeah, I could understand that. Yeah. Morgan, anything you want to add to that?
And I would agree. I think that the enhanced, safety protocols that we've all put into place, aren't going to just turn off like a light switch once there's, a vaccine. I think that people are putting some best practices into place that, listen, I think we'll all benefit from in the future. And so I think that you will see. But I also, it was safe to begin with. We're dealing with a pandemic now. It's a very specific thing. We operated safe environments to start with. We have health and sanitation efforts. We do, safety audits throughout our spaces. Those aren't new things because of the pandemic. Yes, we've added face masks, and yes, we've added social distancing and layers of new safety protocols. But I think it's important to remember that, as an industry, it's our job to provide a safe environment and safe food.
I love what you just said. And I'm going to tell you why I love what you just said. Because you bring up a good point. Yes, this is a pandemic. Yes, it's a very intense level of safety protocols. But yes, we've always taken safety measures in all that we do, from the time an event starts to the time an event ends, from OSHA regulations in the States to serve safe certifications and safe food guidelines and all of those things. So this is a new layer. It's a new layer. So that's something I feel like we could use when we're talking to our clients. We've always practiced safety. We've always followed every guideline to a T. And now there's a few new guidelines to follow, and we follow them to a T. And I think that's a reassuring message. I'm going to jump to, so we've had a number of expert panels, and we've had some topic-specific webinars outside of our expert panels. And a lot of times questions come up regarding food and beverage, and people were not able to necessarily answer those questions. So here we are, we have two experts here that I think you're going to be able to answer some questions that people have had. And we've been just waiting for the right people to answer them. So the first one is, can buffets still work for group events? If so, what extra precautions are taken? How do you manage the line at the buffet? And what are the changes for your staff in working buffet services? Murray, you want to go first?
Sure, no problems. So the buffets, for now, I think everybody can agree they're over. We're moving specifically to plated events, pre-boxed meals, all that kind of a la carte stuff, tableau menus, choice menus. But buffets will come back at some point, but there are going to be different guidelines around how a buffet is served. I don't see communal utensils as one of the buffets. I do see a staff member serving you your food through a buffet. I do see that there will be distancing signs as well. One of the things we were doing before this kind of whole COVID thing went full scale is we were actually serving the customers through our buffet. So we would have the buffet set up, plexiglass screens, they can see the food, they can see what the meal is, what the product is, and then have a cook back there versus a server that actually was making or had made one of those dishes, grab a plate, talk to the customer, how much would you like, and take that plate, that one cook, and take them all the way down the buffet, put the amount of food they'd like on the plate, put a plate cover on it, push it towards them, and then afterwards, the customer pick up their food. So we're looking at a limited contact scenario for the buffets, and it worked out very well. I did wind up having to have some extra staffing on to make that work, and it did run the buffet. You weren't putting 200 people through a buffet line in half an hour in that scope. So we did have to make sure we had our groups timed properly, we had our breaks timed properly, and we had the right amount of staff on to accommodate that. But it was honestly a lot of fun because we got to talk to the customer, right? Where the cooks are in the back and they're not really seeing the customer. So you get someone come up and say, "Oh, I'm a vegan. What do you have?" "Well, you have a great vegan dish today. I made it. Here's what it is." And it was that connection with the kitchen and the customer I thought was invaluable. I loved it. My staff loved it, and I can't wait to get back to it.
And I love your passion for it. And I think one of the questions I have is that I heard you say about needing more staff in order to serve this and to be effective and efficient in the service of a buffet. So often I think people perceive buffets as to be an economic choice. So do you think if we transition back that it may end up being that the reason for a buffet is for variety more than for the economics of it?
It could be. It could be, absolutely. I mean, from a cost perspective, myself, a 3-course plated meal, I save a lot more money on in the buffet. I don't waste food off a buffet. I'm not trying to look for other venues to reutilize it in. I'm not looking at donating it. If I know I have 100 people coming in, this choice is chicken or vegetarian, and I know I have to do 80 chicken and 40 vegetarian, a little bit off the side, it's more cost effective to do a la carte. But the variety of the buffet, I think, gives people a bit more opportunity to say, no, I'll just have 1 asparagus versus 4, or I'll have half a piece of chicken, or I'll have that whole piece of chicken. So there is more of that customer, how can I put it, more of that customer satisfaction, and also the variety choice that they can have a little or a lot of what they want, not just here's your plate, off you go.
Great. Morgan, anything you want to add to what Murray said, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think Murray's exactly right. I think that the kind of new evolution, if you will, of the buffet is a chef-attended food station. It's creating that chef-driven experience, bringing that in front of the guests. I think that there's a benefit and a marketing opportunity there to really put our culinarians in front of our guests and have them interact, see the passion that Murray has for the food, get to experience that with an event. So I think for sure that's the case. I don't see it going back to self-serve anytime soon. Too many people touching the same spoon, yuck. I do 100% see, chefs creating beautiful composed dishes, being able to pass them to guests. We spend a lot of time getting ready for kind of the rebound of special events, working to create custom plexi shields that are really stylized versions of the old sneeze guard to make sure that, things that could be as pretty as they could possibly be behind plexiglass. Yeah. And so I think that that's really important too, is creating a highly stylized, highly designed environment that is, safe.
Yeah. Thank you. So Morgan, we're going to start with you on this next question that people have wanted an answer to, and we haven't been able to provide it for them yet. We talked about the food buffet. Let's talk about the beverage side. A lot of our venues enjoy providing a bar service, right, for their events. So can you still provide a safe bar service, and what kind of precautions are you taking, and how do you manage the line there? It's kind of the same question, different style. What is?
So, I mean, bars are hard right now, and city and state guidelines vary greatly on what's allowable from a bar standpoint. Most of the locations where we operate right now, you can't walk up to a bar, order a drink, and stand there and mingle and drink it with other guests. That's not permitted. So most of our bars now are more of a walk up, get your drink, go and enjoy it at your table. And so making sure that we have appropriate signage for that, making sure that we're clear on where you should enjoy that cocktail. But really, in most cases, we're doing more service bars. Place an order with your waiter at your table and they'll bring you your drink. It's the safest way to handle it right now. I do think, though, even more so than buffets, the resurgence of bars will come back as soon as it's allowed. People love to go up to a bar, and they love to be able to go up and sit at a bar. And so when that is, permitted again, I think that will be one of those things that we just have to, as food service professionals, be really careful about servicing safely, because there's certainly a demand and a desire for it.
So if you're providing bar service at a wedding, for instance, your team is going to a guest at their table and asking them what they'd like to drink. So you're
Correct.
serving them almost like they were at a fine restaurant in a sense.
Correct.
Right? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, a lot of it's table service right now, mostly because of city and state requirements, not allowing a physical walk-up bar in a lot of our areas. In some instances, there are, there is the allowability for a walk-up bar, but again, you've got to go enjoy it at your table too. And, just from a safety and a liability standpoint, there's a lot that can happen between that bar and that table to make sure that person gets there and gets their butt in a seat to enjoy the cocktail before they start drinking it. The nature of all of us when we go to an event is to want to stand and mingle and talk. And although people are trying to abide by the rules, it's too easy. And so we try to put scenarios in place where, we've really taken the decision away.
Understood. Good. Thank you. Joel, we're going to take a break just in a minute to see what questions we have from the attendees. I just want to get through the questions that were asked in the past here, if that's okay. Does that sound okay? I'm going to assume that sounds okay. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. How are you minimizing the number of people that are handling a plated meal? Murray, I know you talked about in a buffet style, you have that one person assisting and walking the whole way down and then handing the plate. Behind the scenes, you're plating meals, right? You're plating meals to be served. How do you minimize the number of people who are handling a plated meal?
The number of people we're doing is we're more or less assigning one person to one station. So I'll have, or two people, depending on the volume that we're doing. So if I have one or two people doing a salad, they will touch that one plate. It goes out. They will not touch any other plates, say the entree or the dessert. So, and it will go out to more or less a dedicated server. So we'll have a server that would take the order, and then the runners would say, here's one runner, takes out all the salads, and then they come back. And then another runner would take out all the entrees and come back. The server would just be there to perhaps serve the drink or check on the table, but we try to leave the touches of the plate before it gets to the customer to the absolute minimum. And I think we've got it down to about 2. So the cook will touch it, the runner will touch it, the guest grabs it. And that's the line we've been using with right now.
Morgan?
Yeah, very similar on our side. I mean, the only other thing that I'll mention is that we've been really trying to design menus with fewer steps. So when you're actually physically plating out that entree, instead of having, 4 components and a sauce and a garnish, can we reduce that and do something that just requires less steps?
That's a really, both have just really great points that you, now I'm going to ask a question. Do you find that you get a lot of pushback from guests about it's taking longer or the kinds of service you're getting, they're receiving? Do you find people mostly embracing, we get it, there's a pandemic, this is how it is? Or do you get much pushback?
From our side, we're not getting any pushback at all. I mean, everybody is, the guests we have had in the building are very appreciative to be in the building, to be in a face-to-face meeting. They haven't met in a while. So it's there, and they understand what's going on. So if there's an extra step or something that has to be accommodated, I haven't had any guest pushback. All I've had is accolades and compliments, honestly, for how high our safety standards have become.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Morgan?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that people are, being really reasonable about everyone's commitment to making sure that the environments are safe. And if that takes an extra 60 seconds here or 30 seconds there, I think that it's virtually unnoticed because I think people are just happy to be out if they're at these events or they're enjoying an experience. But I also think that, ultimately it's our goal to offer the best possible service while maintaining the safety guidelines. And so if that means we have to have less staff, we're really transparent with the client about it, because ultimately, I mean, at least in Philadelphia, the total capacity of a space is combined front of house staff and guests. And so at some point, you just reach the limitation. And having that transparent conversation, if you're going to have X number of guests, it means I can have X number of staff. So here's the type of experience we can create for that. And here's what the timing looks like. And here's what the timeline looks like. And I think managing expectations and being transparent up front is the way to handle it.
So great. And Joel, I think that last question has already been answered earlier. So I'm going to ask now, not the last question, but the last question in that section. Do you have any questions from our attendees?
I do, actually, a couple that are relevant again to what we've just been talking about. So maybe very similar to the answer for bar service, but Connie asked a question about coffee breaks. And is there also, I know we're going to talk costs in a minute, but are you doing anything different for coffee breaks? And since we had 5 participants upvoted, people I think still want to know, is that the same as bars or different at bars? What are you guys doing for coffee breaks?
For the coffee break side of things, what we've been doing is we've been having a staff member serving the coffee for the customer, so there's not that communal touch. So the staff member has their gloves, they have their PPEs on, they're doing the coffee for the customer, putting a lid on it and handing it to them. That's probably the only way, just to kind of look at that, getting away from that multi-touch points, just on that coffee service. Or what we've done is we have some push button espresso cappuccino machines as well too, where it's you push the button, you get your cappuccino, and then what we'll do, we'll give it the whole machine a quick wipe with a sanitizer cloth, and then we'll get to the next customer that way for the beverage side of it.
Yep.
Completely identical. Our staff is serving the coffee and doctoring the coffee. If you want cream or sugar or almond milk or what have you, that's happening by a staff person right now, so that when we pass over that cup of coffee to the guests, it's ready.
Right. Makes sense. Makes complete sense. Another relevant question, I think, given what we just talked about, what about preset items like salads or desserts or things like that? Is that safe at all right now, or is that just out until things change dramatically?
We're not doing it. I personally don't love it anyway. I don't think it's great for the quality. Sometimes it's perfect for the timeline, but really great food. I like when it comes right out of the kitchen and it's not sitting there waiting for somebody to sit down at a table, starting to wilt or get cold. So, I mean, for the most part, I think that, that's off the table right now until, the situation improves.
Got it.
Yeah, I completely agree with Morgan on that as well too. There's the food coming out of the kitchen now has to be key. Having something sitting on the table for an allotted amount of time is just not going to be acceptable.
No, that makes complete sense. And then one more really quickly, and then I know we have a question on cost coming up. So for those of you that have submitted those questions and upvoted, it's coming. But what about having cohorts go through buffet lines in different rooms? Right now, are you thinking, like, if you have a larger event, are you staging more buffet lines than you normally would? Or are you just kind of going with a slower approach to moving everyone through that line? What's kind of your plan?
Well, I mean, we haven't done a lot of buffets just by kind of the nature of everything. We did do one event recently, a micro event that had food stations, and really how we did it, it was super stylized. We did one small chef attended station per table. And so only those guests that were part of the immediate family and that group, 8 people, went to that station. And listen, that's costly to do that, but it was important to this particular client that they have kind of that food station experience. And that's the way that we came up with to do it safely and within the guidelines.
Yeah, I agree with Morgan as well too. We haven't done buffets in our building since COVID-19 really kicked off. So we're still focusing heavily on the plated a la carte meals right now. We haven't had even a request for a buffet. So, but to answer the question, if we were to do a buffet, it would be, I would probably just space out the seating or the tables and have only a certain amount of table. It'd be probably like that, that Rotary Club dinner where, at table number 10 gets to come for dinner right now, and everybody claps and you go for table number 10, right? So, I mean, you can really have a lot of fun with that and, and really get some wow around it. But that's kind of where I would look at more the future of the buffet going than the massive lineups of people standing one behind each other.
Makes sense. All right, I think we are through enough audience questions right now. We can pick back up with some of the other ones we have.
Great. So I want to ask you a question. I think it's important to everyone who's in attendance here, but this really, I think, will resonate most with planners. So there's all these new, and we have several planners on today from different organizations throughout the US and Canada. So as they begin to plan, and I can be honest with you and tell you, Unique Venues has seen a huge increase in our lead volume. We're really happy to see it. September was up over August by 57% or 59%, one of those two. And we're having a really great October. So people are starting to plan again, whether they're micro events for the short term, but we're getting leads for summer 2021, 2022, 2023. So all of that is starting to flow in again. One of the things I think this question asks is, what can we expect when it comes to cost for food and beverage service with all of these changes, with all of these precautions that you as the food service provider has to take and make? What's going to be, in a general way, the impact on costs for food and beverage for events in the future?
I'm happy to go first.
All right.
I think, listen, there's definitely a cost to keeping our staff wearing clean PPE, to making sure that we have these beautiful plexiglass shields, that we have the letterpress coasters to go on top of your water glasses. All of those things definitely come with a price tag. Quite a few of them we believe are the cost of doing business right now safely. It's our responsibility as an employer to keep our staff safe. But we are providing lots of options at a cost to our clients. And so, yes, the coaster that we provide has Constellation or Abigail Kirsch or Design Cuisine's logo on it. But if you want something that's monogrammed for your wedding or for your brand, obviously there'll be a cost associated with us creating that for you. Same goes with, really beautiful branded disposables. We've created this awesome line called Prepped. It's a line of virtual events menus that can be delivered to your home for hybrid style events or for fundraisers that are now going solely virtual. And those branded disposables are obviously branded for our company. However, there is the potential to rebrand or reskin those to suit the needs of the fundraising client or the nonprofit or the wedding. And in all of those cases, those costs do get passed on to the client. But as it relates to service, and in the case where we've gotten people COVID tested, et cetera, we're transparent with the client. These are the costs for these things. If you'd like to add this on, we're happy to do it. If not, this is what we do as our standard. And so we're just trying to be as open as possible. But I also think that this is an incredibly competitive market now to come back into catering. There are a lot of people that are trying to rebound and recover all at the same time. And there are only so many little micro weddings and micro events happening right now, even if they're on, the rebound and on the growth cycle. And so I think we do have to be really competitive. We can't just increase all the costs.
Great. Thank you so much for all of your insights there. There was some things that really resonated with me and what you said, but let's hear what Murray has to say here too.
Yeah, no, I agree with Morgan on quite a few of those things. Some of those costs are going to have to be directly passed on to the customer. But for right now, I'm really trying to absorb a lot of those costs within what I'm doing in the operation. So the last thing I want to do is go out and nickel and dime a group or nickel and dime a planner and say, here's all the additional costs. We're trying to really kind of pull that into play. And Morgan alluded to it earlier. So instead of having an entree plate that has 5 or 6 different components onto it, maybe it's 3. And I'm charging still the same price, but now I'm actually giving myself a little bit more leeway that I can absorb the cost of that bamboo cutlery that's going to be on the table. So so the cost is still there. I'm trying to absorb it into my menu prices as best I can. And if there is one-offs like, logo coasters and all that kind of stuff that people would like to have, then yes, that's going to come at additional cost. But now it's not the time to start nickel and diming the customer. Now it's the time to say, here's what we're going to be doing. Here's the cost. Maybe it's some small nominal fee that's going to go up to host your event here. And it's all about building back confidence of the brand, building back your customer base, getting them to come back with testimonials. You may only do a 10 people group hybrid meeting, and then next year they're going to come back with 200 because they know that you were fair with them on the price. And I think that's going to have to be key.
Yeah, 2 things I heard there that I want to comment on. I heard Morgan talk about choice. So she presents options, and consumers love choice. And in the time of a pandemic, I find it commendable that you're still providing a choice. You could do it this way, but you could also do it this way. This is our standard. And you'll work with the client to provide choice. And the other thing I heard, Murray, that you said that I really love is customer loyalty. What people really want from a consumer psyche is that they want to feel taken care of. And right now they want to feel safe as well. People who take good care of them during a time like this are really poised to take care of that same group in the future.
Yes, that's what we feel too.
So I think I really want to say to both of you, I'm really appreciating the messages that you're providing today. Thank you for that. We're starting to wind down. I'm going to ask, I always ask one last big question. But this is the question before the last big question. What are some fun and creative ways to provide food and beverage service within the context of current guidelines that still demonstrates high quality and experience for attendees? And can any of them be replicated in a to-go style event where people are grabbing their meals and going somewhere else in the venue or outside?
From my side, I find it really comes down to the packaging. If you can find some creative packaging that's out there, that really can kind of elevate the dish. But the food side of it is just still keeping with that creativity, still keeping with those dietary trends, still looking at the vegans and the vegetarians and the flexitarians and the plan forward. And those people are still, those guests are still coming back to the venues. And I'm still trying to make sure I'm keeping, again, we talked about cost, keeping the cost in line with that, but also having some really creative food ideas around what I'm actually able to serve out to customers. Is it small little plates or small little containers or something that's going to be really colorful, vibrant, pops in your mouth with tons of flavor that can actually go out into an event that is put down at maybe everybody's table and they can grab it that way. So the fun is really going to come back with, I think, how creative we are as chefs when it comes into putting in some really unique ideas. Still looking at the dietary, the allergen needs that the customers are having right now, but also really delivering above and beyond the expectations.
Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what was popular before COVID will remain popular. People love miniature things. People love their own little vessels of things. And so I think that taking that and making it safe is absolutely something that we're doing a lot of. Past hors d'oeuvres are a little hard right now. You don't want a tray with 12 items on there that all people are taking, but passing a tray that has beautiful little faux sardine tins that when you open it up as an individual, you have this beautiful little 2-bite dish in there that's just for you is really sweet. And so there's a lot of those. I know.
One of those,
and so really looking at really cool vessels that are, disposable and from the eco-friendly standpoint, not terrible for the environment, is one of the ways that we're looking to bring the fun into food service right now. And the other thing is, from the to-go standpoint, this virtual event concept of being able to deliver to someone's home the same food and beverage experience as all the other virtual attendees are having, I think is really awesome. And we've had fun with putting together, cocktail kits that go in this virtual event package, really cool branded meal totes that have these little like decorate your own cupcake or make your own whoopie pie kits. Anything that can be interactive, because frankly, when it comes to your home, it's safe. You're packaging something that only one or two people, to Murray's point, have touched in the kitchen before it gets to you. And then you are unpackaging it like a present in your home. And then it's your little like creative kit.
I love the idea of popping open a sardine can that does not have sardines in it. So you've created a monster. You've created a monster everywhere I go now. Do you have this in a little sardine can?
Yeah. Can I have one of those little like keys, please?
I know people who do. So there was an important Q&A question I want to get to, Joel. I don't know if you saw it, about the legal ramifications. Do you want to go ahead and pose that question to our speakers, Joel?
Yeah, I was leaving that one, and again, we'll be honest and say that Morgan and Murray are not lawyers or legal experts, so their answers may be limited to some extent. But we always usually get these questions too from people wanting to know about the liability or legal side of things. So the question is obviously, aside from the sanitation, safety, and comfort of the guests and the client, what are the legal concerns that have been presented since the start of COVID and its effect on the food service industry? So what kinds of things do you have the lawyers in your ear telling you that you can and cannot do? Or what are some things that our planners and venue managers should be thinking through from a more higher level legal aspect of what we should or shouldn't be doing?
I mean, I think from a planning standpoint, a lot of our clients, wedding clients, corporate clients, et cetera, are asking the question, what if? What if the world shuts down again? What if I can't have my rescheduled event that I've rescheduled 4 times already? And what does that mean for my contract? And so we've been working really closely with our legal counsel on, COVID addendum or, enhanced verbiage that, A, protects us in the instance that, bad things happen again, but B, protects our clients and shows that we care and we have a commitment to making sure that when their event can happen safely, we're still the right fit for them.
Thank you. Murray?
Yeah, I think that's great, Morgan. We're looking at that too but again, to go back to what Morgan was saying, if it looks at the legal side of it, we were still, before the pandemic, running safe kitchens. We still had certifications. We still had federal inspectors, local inspectors coming in. I still have my Wyndham inspector coming in as well too, and looking at the kitchen. And all that stuff still happened, and there was still a lot of safety. There's still a lot of concern. There's still a lot of, or not concern. There's still a lot of safety, but there's still a lot of protocol in place that makes our food establishment as successful and as safe as it possibly can. So from the kitchen standpoint of the legality side of it, from our side of it, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but it's taking those extra precautions with the face mask, with maybe more gloves, disposable aprons, face shields. Those are kind of the things that are in place now, but when it comes down to more of the contract booking, is what you alluded to, Morgan, and addendum clauses and cancellation clauses and things like that. That's something that would be a little bit higher up the food chain than me, unfortunately.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's really important from a responsibility standpoint that your city and state guidelines where you do business. They are constantly updated, like almost on a daily basis. And so it is almost a full-time job to keep, on top of them. But it's really important because that's where I think you get into a pickle.
Yeah, I agree.
Before I ask this last question, in case a few people have to jump off, I just have to acknowledge that both of you have an incredible level of expertise that I so appreciate. And you also have a very confident and comforting way of providing us with your responses. It's very encouraging. I'm hearing, we got this. That's what I hear. And I just have to say so much, how much I appreciate not only having you as Unique Venues clients, but to have you in our network as professionals and experts. So thank you. So here comes the
Thank
big
you.
question. Only people that I say that to gets this really big question. So here you go.
No pressure.
I want you to imagine that you could look into a crystal ball right now. With the changes that have occurred in response to COVID-19, do you feel, let me read this again. Looking into your crystal ball, what changes that have occurred in response to COVID-19 have been positive for the food service industry and could or should remain after the crisis subsides?
Morgan, do you want to go first?
I can. I think, listen, I think that this crisis has absolutely created a scenario where we've all had to look at things differently. We've all had to create new opportunities. We've had to be really nimble to stay in business and to stay relevant and to stay in the forefront of our clients' minds. I think from what's positive, especially for our company. I mean, the fact that we were able to pivot and provide meals for so many people in need is something that will always be an amazing positive that came out of this. And in fact, I mean, we're hoping to continue to find opportunities like that to do that forever. And so I think that, that's something that if you had asked me 10 months ago, is that something that we would be doing? I wouldn't have known. But that's definitely a positive that came out of this. I also think just the soul searching of the last 8 months and trying to figure out, who we are as a company in light of this pandemic and how we can support our employees who are in need right now and make sure that we put employee resources into place and employee relief programs into place and donations into place. Those are all things that I think we're really, really proud of. And I think that's all very positive.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. From my side, I agree with Morgan. I think the pivoting and changing, if someone would have told me back in March that I'd be on doing video cooking lessons, I would be, what are you talking about? So there has been a lot of changes within the industry. There's been a lot of change that we've had to adapt to. But I think what it's given us is it's really given us a challenge. As a chef, I love a challenge. It's the only reason, I think it's one of the main reasons I'm in this job, because it changes so rapidly and it's so unique and different. But it's also given me the opportunity to challenge my associates as well, too, and say, how can we look at this and do this better? How can we not waste as much? How can we give back to the community more? How can we utilize the products that we have? Because we are going to be opening up on probably a smaller scale. So we're not going to be able to bring in those $5,000 broadline distributor orders anymore. So we might have to bring in $2,000. And how are we going to use those products efficiently and effectively within the building and really push ourselves to come up with great recipes? I think now's the time where people are really looking for what is new, fresh, and exciting out of our chefs. Everybody's at home on Instagram all day looking at these great pictures that people are doing at home. And it was even one of the things, I went to my local Canadian Tire to try and find masonry jars because I wanted to do some jalapeno jelly and a couple things at home. I couldn't even find them. They were sold out. So there is a lot of focus on the home cooking. And when those customers are coming back to our venues, they're going to be looking for, I feel, a much higher elevation of what the culinary standard is. They're going to want to meet the chefs. They're going to want to be out on the floor. They're going to want to see what goes into the food. And that is going to be what sets us apart from other venues to be successful.
Great. I lied. I have one more question. What's your favorite COVID-19 item to serve that you serve to your guests? Something that was born out of this pandemic that you serve to your guests. What's your favorite thing? The signature thing that you're serving?
Actually, the favorite one I like, for a lot of our venues, obviously the buffets are shut down. So we did a lot of pre-packaging, a lot of box lunches. So I've taken my box lunches and I've really thrown them on their heads. So we have a slew of different options. I personally love the sushi option in my box lunch. So we do like little sushi bento boxes, or we'll have a chicken burrito bowl, so we really follow the bowl scenario, build your own bowls. Really looking at focusing more on the healthy side of the eating. especially for lunch now, where that area. But I think the box lunch program we had has definitely elevated, and I'm very happy, and the guests are really, really excited when they see it. They're not just getting a sandwich and a bag of chips; they're getting something completely different.
Great. Morgan, other than your sardine can.
I mean, for me, it's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. I think one of the things that I love the most that we're doing right now are these kind of cocktail party in a box kits that we're doing for the virtual events. You know, it's this really fun bar snack box of all of your, like, you know, gluttonous and indulgent snack mixes and nut mixes and, you know, truffled potato chips and all the yumminess, paired with fun, creative, do-it-yourself cocktail kits. And I think that really couldn't be more fun.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you again. Just such a heartfelt thank you to both of you. And to all the 200 and some people who joined us live today. Really, really appreciate it. So with that, Joel, anything in closing you'd like to share?
Yep, just really quickly, I also would like to thank both Morgan and Murray for joining us today. It was a great conversation, and we really, really value your expertise, and you have helped us answer questions that have been pending out there at many of our member group therapy sessions and roundtables and other webinars we've been on. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Just want to remind those that are left, we have a few more educational events in October coming up. Next week, we've got a webinar specifically around weddings. I do, I don't, and everything in between, that is going to present some stories of couples that have had to adapt their weddings during COVID-19 and some venues and other planners and their experiences as well. Next Thursday is our planner roundtable for those of you that are planners that would like to join us. And finally, at the end of the month, we've got Spooky Spaces, which is one of our really exciting webinars that we like to do, where some of our venues share with you those haunted tales from their venues and how that adds to the guest experience while you are having your meeting or event there. So you can register.
And if I could, Joel, can I make a shameless plug for Spooky Spaces? Right
Yes.
now we have 0 Spooky Spaces. Last year we had so many that we had to pick and choose. And I'm going to tell you, planners love this session. They love to hear, and you get to not only tell the haunted tale of your venue, but you get to tell planners it's all planners in attendance, why your venue is great for them. So if you've got a haunted tale to tell, let's make sure we do it.
There you go. Email Chuck directly, and he'll get you on the list. Then finally, just one last plug as well for UVMC. It's coming up here in a couple of weeks. Join us, and you can register for it at the website address that you see down below. And with that, again, one last time, thank you to everyone that joined us today. We appreciate the time that you put into it. Thank you to our experts for being here. And Chuck, always thank you for moderating and leading the discussion. And we will see you all on a future Unique Venues webinar or at Unique Venues Annual Marketing Conference. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys. It was great.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thanks for take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.